Edit.
Welcome to this video on four-part harmony. I'm Professor Eric Lindsay. Today we're going to explore this crucial aspect of tonal music composition and the different ways that we can write choral music and four-part music of our own. Four-part harmony is the cornerstone of common practice tonal music analysis. In this style, each chord consists of four notes, with all parts typically sharing the same rhythm. There are two main formats for studying and notating four-part harmony. First is SATB, or chorale format, and the third type is keyboard format. So let's dive into each one of these. The first one being SATB. This stands for soprano, alto, tenor, bass. The main points are soprano and altos are going to be written on the treble staff, tenor and bass parts are written on the bass staff. The upper parts of each staff are going to have the stems up, lower parts are going to have the stem down. Each voice is going to have a specific range for comfortable singing. Sopranos are generally going to stay within the range of C4 to G5. Altos, G3 to D5. Tenors, C3 to G4. Basses, E2 to C4. Proper spacing is also crucial. Adjacent upper parts should be no more than an octave apart. We can have a bigger octave gap between tenor and bass, but between soprano, alto, and tenor, do not have an octave exceeding between each one of their spaces. Conversely, we don't want to voice everything so close together that these voices are crossing. So we're trying to avoid voice crossings when chords move between voices, just to create a clear sense of line. The other option is keyboard format. And the keyboard format is going to present a four-part harmony for piano or keyboard instruments. Key features are, we have one note in the left hand in our bass clef, three notes in the right hand in the treble clef. The right hand notes are going to share a single stem if they have the same rhythm, and the stem direction is going to depend on the note placement relative to the staff's middle line. Whenever we run into instances where there is an interval of a second within a chord, we're going to place the upper note on the right side of the stem instead of cramming them in on both sides of the left hand of the stem. And if the upper voice has a different rhythm, we might stem it separately in the opposite direction of the other two voices. In four-part harmony, proper doubling and voice leading is going to be essential. Doubling rules when we have a triad, one of the notes is going to be doubled. So it's preferable, as we said, to double the bass of root position and second inversion triads. In first inversion triads, we can usually double any note. So in these examples, I might say that if I needed to make a 1/6 chord, let's maybe double up my root this time. I might give that to my soprano, my alto, and the chordal fifth I'll put in the tenor. That's fine. If I'm asked to do a 1/6 chord in the key of G, I would remember thinking about what are the notes I've got in my G triad. It's a G, B, and a D. And since it's in first inversion, maybe I'll try and double up my root this time. So maybe I'll give the soprano and the tenor the root. For the next example, in A flat major, we're supposed to do a 4/6/4 chord. That's a second inversion triad, if you remember that 6/4 means second inversion. And if you remember the rules around doubling second inversion triads, we're trying to double the bass note. So let's think about what the 4 chord is in A flat. That's A flat, B flat, C, D flat. This is a D flat major triad, and we're looking for the notes of that triad is a D flat, F, and an A flat. Second inversion means A flat is going to be the note that we're doubling, and the remaining two notes, the D flat and the F, let's go ahead and put in the alto and the soprano. Now, seventh chords don't require doubling because there are 4 notes in the chord and we have 4 voices. So everyone's going to take a specific note of that chord. The main important thing is if there's ever an instance where we, for voice leading purposes, need to double something, we never want to double a tendency tone, especially our leading tone. So we would never have an instance where, let's say that we needed to make a 5/6/5 chord in the key of D. So that is our dominant chord, our dominant 7 chord. 6/5 means first inversion dominant chord. So if I'm in the key of D, my dominant chord is A, and I need to have C sharp in the bass because it's first inversion. I'm going to have C sharp there, G in the tenor, E in my alto, A in the soprano. Under no circumstances do I want to double that leading tone. Or the chordal 7th, frankly. Just don't double either of those. If we're in the key of E, and we're trying to do a 5/4/3, that's a second inversion dominant 7 chord in the key of E. What is my dominant chord in the key of E? That is B. So I'm making a 7 chord, that's a B, D sharp, F sharp, A. And in second inversion, that means that F sharp is in the bass. It's good whenever you're spelling a dominant chord a dominant 7 chord in particular, that we kind of keep track of which one of these tones is my leading tone and which one of these is my chordal 7th. And it's kind of like identify that as you're mapping this chord out. So I'm just kind of like making a mental note so that I make sure I don't double these. And as we start getting into voice leading rules, I'm making sure that I'm resolving them the right way. And sneak peek, chordal 7th, we always resolve that down, and the leading tone always needs to resolve up. So we'll get into that in a later video. What especially bogs people down is the ability to recognize a chord and situate its location within a key, such as seeing an A7 chord in a D major key signature and recognizing it as a dominant chord. Also knowing what to double. Remember, we're doubling the bass note of a root position and a second inversion triad. This can throw people off when they're trying to juggle other more complex rules around voice leading. So next we're going to dive deeper into the rules around how voices move between chords, both in keyboard and SATB spacing. Look forward to seeing you then.